All right. Good evening. We'll start up in just a moment. We'll see if a few more people want to join in. My name is Damon Smith, president of HAMA, Historical African Martial Arts Association, founder of Guild of the Silent Sword, and we're gonna be doing a quick Q&A for those that are interested, and then we're gonna talk about an event we have going on tomorrow. It's a little late in the game, but I wanted to kind of put that information out into the ether for those of you who are interested. So we'll give just a few moments here to see what's what. Looks like I have one person, and that one person is probably me. Go ahead and if you are on, go ahead and let me know where you're calling, where you're at. Uh, City, state, country, what you do. If you're a martial artist, you're a historian, movement, whatever it is you do. Let's see. Probably not expecting to get a lot of people. It's Friday night, and it's pretty late as far as time goes. So, anywho, give it a few minutes. All right. All right. I got a second person. Hello. Let me know who you are, where you are. All right. LJ Small, Washington State. All right. I used to live in Washington State um, way back in the day. Spokane. Went to Medical Lake High School for my what was that? For my sophomore year, and then started at LC my junior year. All right, Washington State. Okay, well, thank you for being here. It might just be the two of us on this chat. It's kind of late, and I'm not expecting too many people. But hey, if you got a question that you wanted to ask, if you're a subscriber, um, or if you're not a subscriber, I should say please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Okay, I got another person on. Let me know who you are, where you're calling in from, not calling in from, but where you're tuning in from. You know, city, state, country. Are you a martial artist? If you're a subscriber, awesome. Make sure that you hit the notification bell. And if you have any questions for me, we'll go ahead and get started. All right. Digital Good Times. I'm assuming, are you from Washington State as well? All right. Near Seattle. Cool. Like Seattle. Seattle. Been there a couple of times. Pretty cool little city. Um, yes, yes. Nice. Okay, we're getting some people here. We got four now. Four people for this crazy live. Let me know where you are, where you're at. Shout out your city, your state, your country, your art, which art you practice. Any of you guys martial artists, artists of some sort? All right, we got a bunch of people now. We got six people. I'm pretty stoked about that. Um, let's go ahead and get into some questions. If there are any questions, I will pull some from previous videos. So I'll give you guys a moment there, and we'll see if anybody else jumps in, and we'll go ahead and start. Mm. So I do want to announce that tomorrow we're going to be doing a really cool workshop. Okay, so Digital Good Time says off and on martial artist. Okay, cool. What style? What system? Okay, what's going on, Andrew? Austin, Texas. I know. Good, good. Yep. jiu-jitsu and SEA all the time. Yeah, yeah. I saw we need to talk over the phone. I know sometimes it's hard for me to reply by via text messages, but I know you had a question about whether African armies used standards like in Japan or in Europe, and I honestly I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. I know that um, there was some form of insignia or some form of way of distinguishing command on the battlefield, and I think it was based around using uh, umbrellas. Not umbrellas, but parasols. Some of that tradition carried over into the diaspora, where they would use these sunshades, these parasols to indicate command. But like I don't know for certain. I have to dig a little deeper to see for certain if they had actual standards. But that's some homework for me to do, and we could pick a day, maybe give me a couple of weeks, and I can see what I can come up with. But I would imagine the more northern armies probably use some type of standards and stuff. And then I guess it's just a question of whether some of the southern kingdoms would have done so as well. So, yeah, awesome. Here, let's see. So LJ Small says, "I'm interested in learning swordsmanship, metal crafting, and learning the dance of the sword." Awesome. Well, cool. Glad that you're here. And Digital Good Time says you've done some HEMA, then some capoeira. Okay, so you play. Did you do a capoeira Angola with Mestre Jurangir in Seattle, or capoeira Palmares in Seattle? Let me know. All right. Let me flip over here and see what this does real quick. Just pull some questions off from some of my videos here. Oh yeah, so I'm a little. Whatever. There we are. Okay. Okay, so we got Taharka here. Says I could just imagine King Pianki being played by Idris Elba. Maybe he's too old for that role. I don't know how old Pianki was when he was against his companion Tefnak, ruler of the Nile Delta. Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think that Idris Elba is too old to play Pianki. Um, I don't recall his age when he passed, but I've always envisioned him to be an older man, especially when you consider that the relationship between um, Pianki and his brothers or the rulers that came after him, we're not quite sure like what their relationship was, whether they were sons or whether it was brothers. Um, and I think that he was probably an older man. I mean, not like in his 60s or so, but I think Idris Elba could play him with no problem. That would be pretty good to see. See here. All right, you guys are quiet. All right. Okay, so yeah, Digital Good Time says I met both teachers, play a little bit, but life gets in the way. Yeah, I totally understand that. Totally get that. Um, while I have seven of you guys on, I'm gonna go ahead and announce that tomorrow we're gonna be doing the second installment of our workshop, virtual workshop, a kind of a sampling and getting an exposure to Filipino martial arts and fighting arts from the African diaspora. We're partnered with Guru J, Visayan Corta Cadena Escrima. And the way that the workshop is kind of set up is we're doing a one for one kind of comparison. So we did last Saturday, we did like long stick and we did bladed weapons. And this weekend or tomorrow, we're going to be doing Guru J is going to be doing Panatunkin, and I'm going to be doing some 52 blocks, and then he's going to do Sikaran, and then I'm going to be doing Pernada, which is basically it's all the leg sweeps and trips from capoeira. And Pernada was like an older version or a different modality of I don't want to say different modality of capoeira, but it was a different fight modality. Um, yeah. Got you. Yeah, so basically, um, I'm kind of reading your mind, I think, digital. But yeah, so Pernada is one of the sweeping. It's primarily a sweeping game. Good night, Andrew. Thank you for joining in. Um, it's primarily a danced competition between. I should say that it sounds weird saying a dance competition, but it's basically it's a fighting art activity that consists of primarily of like leg sweeps and trips. There's different ways to play it, and it goes by different names in different parts of Brazil. So digital, you're probably more familiar with batuque, which was if you train capoeira regional or familiar with regional. Mestre Bimba's father was a champion batuquero. Um, the way that Batuque is played is a little different than the way Pernada is played. So Pernada is almost kind of like samba, like almost like imagine like samba with leg sweeps, whereas Batuque is it's I mean it has that same kind of aspect, but one as opposed to so in Pernada, both people are kind of playing, moving, and trying to like feint and sweep and trip, whereas in Batuque, one person stands still and stands in a guarded position while the other person dances around that person and tries to unbalance them with this, same type of leg sweeps and body checks and stuff. So yeah, so there's a few videos out of variant forms of this tripping art that was very very influential in modern capoeira. A lot of the sweeps and bumps and takedowns and trips can be traced back to these earlier practices. So we're going to be exploring that. This Pernada is purely like reconstructed. Um, based off of descriptions and based off of the techniques we have available. So, and especially putting in, we wanted to put it into the fight context. So that will be what we'll be doing tomorrow. Really looking forward to that. I really have fun with Pranana, playing around and exploring that modality is lots of fun. So great question. Great question. Let me see. There was a question or comment about the Mamluks. Yeah, we are currently working on getting our Mamluk treatise translated. It's been a slow process. It's been a slow, hard process, but it's coming along. We should have some updates out soon, and hopefully some technical videos coming out soon as well. But yeah, it's pretty interesting to see the connection that because it's hard, it's hard, especially like with historical martial arts in Africa. It's hard to draw certain lines where one thing starts and like where one thing ends. Um, a lot of let me see, I got another person in here. Glaaki 13. I'm probably butchering that. I'm sorry, my friend. My friends are trying to say this. Now I have Viking friends and train with them, and they have ideas of fighting. And though fighting learning more, is that the same all around, or their text? Okay, that is a great question. So, concerning Africa, it's a large continent, and I was actually kind of touching on some of that right now before I start reading your question. So, some parts of the continent, um, there are no texts that are written by the indigenous people. I mean, you go to places where I mean a large amount of the continent is what we would say oral literate, meaning writing wasn't necessarily a thing, and so most of the tradition is carried on through through practice and through preservation through practice. So any accounts we get, say, from like Central Africa, is not necessarily coming from the Central Africans. It's coming from European observers of their activities, and then there's lots of really interesting information, but you don't get any like fight manuals or anything like that. And then there are areas that are literate areas where um, there are literate areas where we haven't really found any unique documents that discuss like fighting and or whatnot. So in these areas, and typically these areas are going to be uh, Arab speak, or I should say, Arabic literate, influenced by Islamic culture or Arab culture to a certain extent. We have to say that, understand that, with even with the adoption of Christianity and Islam in Africa, there has been like a particular flavor, a particular way that this has been, uh, how should I say, this way that's been put into practice. So, um, yeah, so you have these areas that are going to be largely influenced by the greater Islamic world as far as warfare goes. But that information, just to state that they had access to this information at the same time, they also had their very unique interpretations of these practices. And it wasn't completely like, hey, Islam is here now. I've completely get rid of, the way we do things. There were certain realities in those areas that yeah, there were certain realities in that area that affected how they fought and how they viewed fighting and stuff. So, again, the quick answer is like, no, there's not any specifically African manuals that we've come across yet. Some of the closest fight books that we have are going to be written, or we're going to be uh, Arab or Mamluk treatises. And so, again, going back to like, where does one start, where does one end? It's hard to say. I mean, again, Islamic culture and war style and warfare influence many peoples, and we have to kind of accept that that's kind of part of, like, at least like a starting part of understanding where some of this information came from. So, yeah. Other than that, then we're using similar techniques to other groups, like any like Dark Age, Viking Age group, who are having to like do reconstruction based off of experimental archaeology. So we're looking at weapons, tools, armor, um, artwork, descriptions that we can find by non-African or observers or participants. Um, we're fortunate in some regards that, um, at least when we're in, at least for the Sahel and the areas where the horse was dominant and sword, spear, and shield fighting was common. These areas kind of maintained a lot of these traditions up into the 19th century, so it wasn't uncommon to get an account of a West African army or a Sahelian army that still fought in the old ways of close quarters fighting with edge and impact weapons. So that's one thing that's fortunate. At the same time, again, there's no fight manuals or anything like that, so we are having to kind of piece together from different sources. So another boon for us in some regards is finding living traditions that maintain some of these practices. Sometimes it's kind of diluted in or contained within sword dances. Sometimes it's observed in like playful recreational sparring that takes place, whether with sticks or with swords or with whatever the case may be. So we can observe some of these things in real time now. Again, at the same time, it's not necessarily a instruction book on how to get better at that. Thank you. That was a really good question. Hopefully, I answered that. Let me see what's going on, Alex. It's good to be heard, my friend. Hope you and your family are doing well. When you practice, let's see, LJ Small says, when you practice, have you entered flow state? Um, yes. Typically, what I try to do is enter flow state is when I'm sparring. When I'm most relaxed and most connected, the sparring becomes, and even then, not really concerned about winning, and not really even concerned about pressing my will upon the other person, but just in that in that moment of I'm conscious of what I'm doing, but I'm also open and embracive to what's being done. So I think in those moments I feel for myself, I reach kind of like a flow state, where it's I just am. So I haven't had that when I'm just like training by myself and doing my thing. But definitely when there's like a connection there, and I'm able to like let go of all the stuff inside my head and just kind of like just like be in that moment, then yeah, there's like a really beautiful feeling. So, and I hate that right now we're not able to interact and experience that for right now because of the COVID. I hope everybody's being safe and um, you know everybody's doing well. What's going on, Dal Paleo from Lithuania? All right, Lithuania. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here. We're just kind of chatting and talking about, you know, checking in with each other, and then talking about just asking questions. If you got any questions for me about African martial arts or Hama or African history, I'll do my best to answer some of these questions. Also, if I got new people on, just wanted to announce that we're going to be having a workshop with myself and Guru J Visayan Corta Cadena Eskrima. We're going to be doing a mashup Filipino martial arts and fighting arts from the African diaspora. If you check out my thumbnail, it's actually a flyer for the event. All right, Steven says, what's my favorite two-handed weapon? My favorite two-handed weapon. To be honest, I mean, my answer will be disappointing, I think. I've always really loved naginatas. I really love naginatas. I said it. I love the naginata. Um, Not an African weapon at all, but it is a weapon I have a deep, profound respect for. And if I could, if I could go back in time, because I used to live in Okinawa, I think I would have tried to take up some naginata classes while I was there if I could have found a school. I'm sure there was a kendo school or whatever. that taught naginata as well. But yeah, I like the naginata. It's it can cut and it can thrust and it keeps you far away from your opponent. So those are all really good things. Um, so yeah, naginata will be my favorite two-handed weapon. Um, I have a deep and profound respect for the spear. And so then, like, actually, as far as the African context goes, then my favorite two-handed weapon would be the Bagara um, spear, the Sudanese spear with the really broad leaf-shaped blade that could be used as a hewing spear. That would be like my favorite spear, my favorite two-handed weapon in the African context. Let's see here. Mars, Mathematics, Almighty, what's popping, fam? What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Where you coming in from, Mars? Are you probably coming in from Mars? Let's see here. LJ Small, what do you think of the crook and flail? Have you had a chance to practice with them? I have not. Okay, Philly, stand up. Most definitely. Well, welcome, brother. I have not. I've thought about that every once in a while. What what those, of course, what they symbolize in Egyptian culture, and then like viewing them as weapons. And I think kind of um, I think I don't know for certain if they were actually weapons, but I think more what they symbolize to the Egyptian people is what gives them their power. Pharaoh being uh, the master of the land, lord of the land. Those are those two implements. To me represent the shepherd, the pastoralist, as well as the agriculturalist, and um, not to get into deep the symbolic language of the Egyptians, 'cause I'm not really well versed in that. But I've always thought about those two vocations, how vital they were uh, to um, to Egyptian society at the time. Let me see here. Let me see here. Boom. So it says, what aspects? This is Alex. It says, what aspect of martial arts do you wish you had more time to focus on? Man, Alex, that's a tough question. Um, I always felt like when I was younger, like I train. It's like I wish I could take my old man's mind and go back to my young man's body, and I would have spent more time on like my footwork, more time on my flow, more time I think, like, yeah, just more time. I was like, I love geeking out on some of the different ways of training, of training like different attributes of the fighter. So I think I would go back and just instill some of that old wisdom into my young body. Like I wish I had more time for that, and I guess I still can. I mean, I'm old, but I'm not like old. But my daughter is calling me right now live. I'm not old, but yeah, I wish I can go back and do some of the do more with my footwork and more with my flow, and more with just kind of conditioning my body, making myself a little more well-rounded. Hang on one sec, got another question coming in here. What's going on, Jamal? All right, let's see. Okay, Mars says, "Do I know Arasa?" Yeah, I know, brother Arasa. He's my little brother. You know him? I'm assuming you do, or seen some of his work. Look out for him. He's doing some really, really good work. Really, really good work. Let's see, Dow Paleo. I'm more interested and practicing with the fighting techniques before middle age, staff, spear, club, shield, but I have not found anywhere where the flint knife was ever used for stabbing. Hmm. Blah, 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 blah. I would say, I mean, I would most definitely think so. Um, but don't get me lying to you. I would imagine so. Like I would think that the 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 stabbing, the thrusting, that would probably be one of the our first like more natural movements to learn to amplify with a tool or with a weapon. Maybe more so than cutting. I mean, if we're looking at from a fighting standpoint, so I would think that flint knives would be fine for thrusting. Um, I mean, of course, I mean they're using flint spearheads. I mean spearheads and arrowheads to do exactly that. So I would imagine that a flint knife would you'd be able to stab with it. Let's see, Stephen asks, like, what do you think is the most popular African weapon? Oh, that's either the most popular African weapon has to be either the Ikwa spear, the Kopesh, the Shotel, and the Kapinga slash Hunga Munga. I think those are the ones that are most commonly cited by other people. So that would be my answer. What do you think? You guys let me know in the comments. Let me see. Mars says, I saw your 52 knocking and kicking style. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I work with Brother Light too. That's the homie. Yeah. We are working on, blending the 52 and blending with capoeira. And for me, I did a video kind of talking about like where I stand with that because it gets really political and it gets really hot real fast, especially when you talk about 52. And also within the capoeira world, it can get kind of hot and about that as well. And for me, what's really important is stating for myself is like doing these arts apart from them being effective techniques and whatever else. Um, the most important thing for me with these arts is the connection that I feel when I do it. You know what I'm saying? The brother was talking earlier about finding flow state. I find flow state when I do these arts, and the blending and bringing these two things together. It it the overlap complements great for me, and it's like it's my expression of these two things. Um, it's my expression of these two things that are, you know, how they exist for application. You know what I'm saying? And it's like there's beauty in that for myself. So yeah, I am going to be more vocal about 52 and more vocal about capoeira, and I haven't really been so um, in the recent past. But yeah, I think it's important for us to, as 52 practitioners, as capoeiristas, to make a good showing of ourselves in many ways, not just you know with how we carry ourselves, but also with what we can with our performance as fighters and as martial artists and as movement specialists. So like yeah, I'll be doing more as soon as like I said, I'm older now, and I had a really terrible injury to my leg, which has slowed me down. It actually kind of caused me to segue into weapons work more heavily, because of my, I had this terrible injury. So I'm working on trying to get my body back to the point where I can move or like I need to. And I definitely want to be doing some more to represent 52 and capoeira. So more of that to come. Shout out to Light Burley. You know what I'm saying? Um, He's a good brother to work with, really knowledgeable, really humble, and has a strong work ethic. So most def. Let's see. Glaki says, now I'm white and a Dane, so Of course, Egypt is the most interested, but do you have any other African culture fighting here that you think is, and I think you mean like important as opposed to impotent. But yeah, I mean, so as far as like historical arts, and if we were looking at historical arts, we can't like one we can't, if we're looking for like written sources, pictorial evidence, a rich, highly studied area, like Egypt is like the first on the list. It's like the most studied um, you know, African culture, from antiquity. So like, of course, we need to start there. We need to know that. That's kind of there's some really important information um, that you get from that. Having said that, I mean, there are like lots of other places that are have wonderful systems and wonderful things to things to learn. It's just our issues that we have is that we need to, as historical martial artists or cultural martial arts or whatever, connecting with people who have done field research. We just don't have we don't have the same amount of information, and even like the same amount of interest. Like you'd be hard pressed to find you know more than like 10 books written on the subject of African, pre-colonial African military history. You know what I'm saying? Or even like, weapons classification, and the study of the evolution of these weapons. Like where these fields that you'll find like in Europe and in Asia, you don't really find them in Africa. They're in, and if you do this, it's in its infancy. So I think that it's important for us, the people that want to reconstruct these things and better understand these things. It's important for us to make these connections with scholars who have done work over on the continent, and show that there is an interest in African military history and traditions, and maybe that would unearth more information, more artifacts that will give us more information. Like one of the earliest swords that have been uncovered is from the ninth century in Burkina Faso. So when we want to understand like what the arms and armor that was used in places like ancient or medieval Ghana, um, we need more people that are on the ground who have done that type of research in order for us to you know compare and contrast, and create theories and ideas based off of that. We just don't have a lot of that, because people have been interested in Africa for a lot of different things, and it hasn't necessarily been archaeology in that sense. So um, hopefully in the future we'll get more information, and the best we can do is work with what we have, practice intellectual honesty, um, and be prepared to learn more and explore more. So, um, but yeah, there's lots of cultures for me, that is too many to name now. But I mean, you can look at um, from Egypt, south of Egypt, you have the ancient and medieval Nubia. You have the ancient and medieval kingdoms of Aksum, Damut, Ethiopia. Um, you have the Sahelian states or kingdoms, Ghana, Mali, Songhai, and you have the Central Saharan or Sahelian states of Kenim, Bornu, um, and the Hausa states. There's a cluster of states between the Central Sahel and your medieval Nubia, the that kind of dot that area there. There's lots to learn. And it's just the areas where we have connection with Islam. Um, as we go further south, the Yoruba Benin kingdoms have a very powerful tradition, very strong, has very strong armies and strong military tradition. We just need to do more research in those areas. Central African warriors had a very interesting way of envisioning warfare and envisioning the world, and these ideas affected many of the fighting arts that we find in the African diaspora. So capoeira, um, Colombian machete, Haitian machete, damier, all these things kind of have this connection to Central Africa and is affected by this style of warfare. So there's it's a big field to study, really large field to study. Let me see here. Got a lot of really good questions, guys. Thank y'all for being here. Please subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. Please check out the thumbnail. We have an event going on tomorrow. It's going to be Filipino martial arts and fighting arts from the African diaspora. I'm going to be teaming up with Guru J of Visayan, Corta Cadena, Eskrima. He's going to be demonstrating Panatukan, which is Filipino dirty boxing, and Sikaran, which is a low line leg kicking, sweeping practice and from the Philippines. And then I'm going to be demonstrating 52 and demonstrating Pernada, which is basically trips and leg sweeps from capoeira. So it's kind of like this one off, kind of like this compare and contrast. It's going to be a great event. We did one last week. It was primarily weapons based. So we did long stick and we did blade. And yeah, tomorrow we're going to be doing hands and feet. So let me see. Boom, boom, boom. Let me go. Lots of good questions coming in, man. Sorry, I'm get caught up here. Old man, mind, and a young body. Yep, that's the way to go. Let's see. Jamal says, "Have you had more time to train with the Mbele?" I haven't. I have not. I got these here. Let me grab this off the wall real quick. Hang on one second. Yeah, so I got this right here, and I got another one. You can see it hanging in the back on the wall there. But um, yeah, I haven't had a chance to mess around with these too much, and I'm sad because of that. I've been busy, um, kind of making weapons and stuff. But yeah, like this is a great example of how you can have because I had one of these, and it was more of a currency blade. So it was made of a really soft iron. Um, it was not meant for combat at all. Now this, is a really beautiful, you know, really beautiful piece. It's seems like it would be heavy or like the weight would be more towards the tip, but it's not so bad. Um it's not balanced in a way where it's awkward. It's actually it feels really good in the hands, and I can't wait to get to demonstrate and play around with this. Like I want to make my own version of this so that I don't have to mess this up, cutting stuff. But I really do want to see how well this cuts. But this is a really nice piece, and the other one in the back is a great one as well, really good. But yeah, I mean it's pretty vicious here, pretty vicious here. But no, so to answer your question, I haven't had a chance to play around with it much. I'm waiting for that opportunity too. Let's see. Yeah, thank you. What do you think of Speared Kopesh? Um, I think they're cool. I've made a few out of wood and out of high density polyethylene as not really as spears, but as like because there is an Egyptian halberd that's basically it's an epsilon axe. I think the maximum length of the head is like 13 inches and hafted onto a long half blade, and it was used it's called by scholars a halberd. These are not necessarily, precise terms, but I think the idea they were trying to convey was an axe, a two-handed long weapon that the Egyptians used. And then you see some depictions of the hybrid mace and axe that was again like a you know a pole arm in essence. So yeah, I would love to see more of these two-handed ranged weapons, these two-handed pole arms. I think that since stick fighting was like such an important way of training in ancient Egypt, um, it helps to connect the two-handed style of stick fighting with the use of pole arms, and that would be like a really good connection to see sync up like that. The only thing is that we do have evidence of two-handed weapons being used on the battlefield. I just wish there was like more, like it was more evidence of it. So, but yeah, no, it's great. Like there, and I think there's a few early Kopesh blades that were thought to be attached to long hafted weapons, as opposed to uh, being used like swords or like short swords. So hopefully, more information will offer more insight. Let's see. How's it going, Mars? Got a second Mars here. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. If this is your first time commenting, I'm honored. I have never used the Aquafina. Um, I I've seen some really interesting Akan variations on the sword. Um, I'd have to first like kind of I'd have to get like to have an opinion because right now it's more of an abstract opinion because it looks like they remind me of like some of the typical um I'll say cutlass cutlass / machete style blades. Um So that's my first inclination. I'd like to see an actual antique one to get like a better idea of how they handle and like how they would be used. Like on the surface, of course, it seems like you would use it for cutting or for hacking or slashing. But I've never really handled one, so I don't really have a strong opinion on them, of them, I should say. So what would be nice is if anyone who has an Aquafina, an antique version of it, if you guys wanted to give me like some stats on the weight and the blade thickness, maybe I can make a version of it as with Street Forge Armory, and then we can do and stuff. I know it's like it's supposed to be bad form to do test cuts with antiques, but um, at some point we need to be able to make like replica pieces that we can use for test cutting in order to gain information without damaging like the these antiques. So if anyone out there has an Aquafina that will be willing to give information about the design and the blade thickness and things like that, you guys can send me an email at austinwarriorarts@gmail.com. I'll write that into my chat, I think. Hang on one second, guys. A great question. Okay, we got Mars. Mars number one, Mars mathematics. Do you know of any African short knives? Yeah. So you have the giles, which are they kind of remind me of I want to say kukris, but they remind me of Sika, the I think they're Roman blades that are like they have like a crooked blade that kind of comes at a really sharp angle. And they range the giles. they range in size. They can be really small knives. They can be like short swords in essence. So those are some pretty common knives. There's a number of daggers, and I don't know the specific names for each ethnic group uses to refer to these daggers. Tuareg, they use a dagger called a tilek, which breaks along the arm, and you find a similar thing amongst the Hausa and the Fulani. I just don't know exactly what terms they use for those knives, but yeah. So you have these double-edged daggers that the Fulani, Hausa, Tuareg would use, and then in the north you have the Kumia. I maybe you're pronouncing that wrong. They are um, they are curved blades with I guess kind of not really a rounded pommel, but it's kind of a I guess an oval shaped pommel. Those are pretty common in the Maghreb in Northwest Africa. What else? Oh, and then of course Central Africa has like many like really exotic, crazy looking knives, varying. Like there's these the tetela style knives that look like bat wings in essence. Like they have these really intricate shapes and flared out portions of the blade that you can find in Central Africa. Central Africa has like the most like I think interesting looking diverse um, weapons that you'll find on the continent because mostly like in the north, in the west, in the east, you'll find some exotic shaped blades, but for the most part, you're looking at like straight swords, you're looking at curved saber type swords, um, and then maybe some shorter variations of these things. But then when you get to Central Africa, you get like a really some blades that look like leaf shape, Celtic or Greco-Roman style blades, but only made like in iron. And then you get some really exotic shapes, like you know this, and it's just really interesting to see the function and the form of these tools. And Central Africa has like some really interesting pieces there. Let's see. Oh, okay, so Delandau Bishop. Sorry, old eyes. Um, hopefully I'm saying that right. Uh, so Delandau Bishop asks, "Do African weapons have elaborate handguards like sabers and rapiers?" And typically, no. Um, and the reason being is uh, mostly these swords are used in conjunctions with the shield, and there wasn't that same kind of need for having that type of hand protection. Now you do see after contact with certain European groups, you do see some more intricate handguards and some blades in Central Africa, and even like there's a uh, I think the most telling is there's a I think it's the Kuba people in Central Africa. They have a handguard that's like modeled after a rapier, after a European sword, and that's pretty rare. Even though you'll find some things like that every once in a while. Um, and that's another thing. Also, it's like these weapons are. It's like um, sometimes you'll find these blends or these hybrids, and we just don't know enough to say like and it may not even be that this is even an issue, because we have like this idea of like these really hard classifications and like, well, what's historical and what are these parameters? And I think that for some of these cultures, it's like, you know, if they make a blade that's produced by them, then I think that there may be some variations between the blades. It's hard sometimes to pin down um, these you know these precise categories for some of these weapons. But yeah. So to answer your question, the most telling blade that I've seen was like the Kubas. Like again, I believe it's the Kuba people from Central Africa who have this. They had like a rapier style uh, uh, D guard, and you're gonna get me in here telling lies about terms. I don't really know the if it's the Rakasso. You guys from Mahima people, Mahima sword people that are on here. Um, the portion of the blade that turn of the guard that would turn up, for lack of a better terms. With that's not the Rakasso. The Rakasso is the tell me these terms so I can get it straight and not lie to anybody because I don't really I'm familiar with them, but since most of the swords that I work with don't really have those kinds of things, um, then it's not as present in my mind. But then that made me think that there are the nimshas that have a very intricate guard, like a D guard with the again, for lack of a better term, with these uh, quillions, maybe that's what they are called, right? I need to scroll down. Um, Let me see if someone's helping me out. Thank you, Crimson Swordsmith. Flanges. There we go. All right, but yeah, so the Nimsha from Algeria and Morocco, they have a pretty intricate style guard. But most African swords are going to be, have a very modest hand protection, and one of the reasons why is because of the shield as being one of the most dominant pieces of protection on the battlefield. Let's see. All right, so great source of access. See. So LJ Small, have you ever heard of Young Pharaoh? No, I haven't. Shoot me some information about Young Pharaoh. Okay, so then guys, I'm missing a bunch here, guys. Thank y'all for being here. Let's see here. Thank you, Shazner. Another fellow Austinite. Shout you out. Hope you're doing well. How'd you like that cold weather we got not too long ago? That was a that was a surprise, big surprise. Hopefully you and your family are doing well. See, Guy S says, why hasn't the Kopesh been used outside slash after its use of Egypt? Or maybe it was, and I just don't know. So some people theorize that some of these curved and recurved blades you find in Central Africa and in other parts of East Africa are in some way connected or related to the Kopesh. And I'm not 100% sure if I buy that. I can probably see it in some context, but I don't know. I'm trying to understand. I'm still myself trying to understand. You know, from the period of New Kingdom Egypt when the Kopesh was commonly used. At some point in time, it fell out of use, and what I'm having a hard time trying to pinpoint is when it fell out of use and like what replaced it. Like what did armies from the third intermediary period look like? What did they carry with them on the battlefield? I haven't been able to get a real solid answer to that question myself, but I think that with the Kopesh, just the emphasis on cutting due to better armor styles, um, made a purely cutting weapon less effective on the battlefield, and probably was replaced by the double edged swords that could cut and thrust. I would think is probably what it replaced, but I can't find any really hard evidence for that myself. But if we were going to look anywhere for the continuation of the Kopesh, it would probably be in East Africa and in Central Africa for at some of these recurved cutting blades. And again, these areas are not areas that they're using, heavy armor. So it makes a cutting weapon as more viable there. So would be cool to see, to have seen the Kopesh evolve into, an early Saber, which I think is kind of where it was headed to. And maybe that's kind of where maybe that evolution happened. If we say that the Kopesh is connected to cutting weapons like the Kopis and the later on the kukris and things of that nature, maybe it eventually evolved into the saber or into the kukri or whatnot. But I don't know for certain. Let's see. Bunch of not knowing on my part tonight. Sorry, guys. It's also late. Have not heard of Young Pharaoh. Colorado got you. Um, let's see. So, and I'm still trying to get your name down. Delandu Bishop. Okay, says shout out from Colorado. How hard is it to get Hama weapons? How hard is it to recreate Hama weapons for say sparring? I've done 1 year of HEMA. So Delandu, so I have a company called Street Forge Armory, and we make training weapons out of synthetics. We've recently branched out into making them and making weapons out of steel, both live and blunted, as well as making bronze for people that are into the Bronze Age stuff. So if you're interested in a particular weapon, contact me via my email at austinwarriorarts@gmail.com and let me know what you're interested in, and we can get you a quote. Yeah, let's see. Sorry, I'm skipping around here. And let's see. Very cool. Yeah, I think that it's really cool the process you go through to just kind of understand Viking Age combat. To really put yourself into that world and learning. You know the skills of the shipbuilders is a great way to like immerse yourself in the past and in the culture there. Quills, Quillion. Okay, cool. Okay, so Ryan Steele, peace, brother. If you had to take three African ancient or medieval weapons into war, what would they be? Um, three African weapons. Oh gosh, so I would take the Bagara spear. I would take the Takoba, and I would take ooh, what else? Maybe I would take hmm, maybe the Chotel. Okay. All right. Let's see. I got 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 4, 8, 8. Your weapons are outdated. What you got to say about that? Absolutely nothing. All right, moving on. Okay, so LOL. As an academic, I love that you're trying to state slash find facts. Trying to. Yeah, it's a hard road sometimes. And again, I just try to be as intellectually honest as possible. Stay humble, stay hungry, work hard, train hard, do my research, and just leave myself as open as I can to like learn as much as I can. So that's as best as I can do. And hopefully this way, as we get more information and as we get better organized, we can, expand. And I look forward to seeing where Hama is, 10 years from now. Um, and hopefully, we've built this bridge between the, traditional cultures that are fighting to maintain some of these practices with the academics who have done, the hard work and have access to, certain um, material and information and access to these places. And then for us martial artists or historical martial artists, we can just kind of triangulate all these different points and really come up with something that's really, uh, what is the word? It's late. My mind is all like scrambled. But like, yeah, it'll be great to see like with this triangulation, being able to really get a glimpse into the past. So I look forward to that day when we're at that point. So glad you guys are here. Let's see. I didn't hear you all the way when you said you were talking about young Pharaoh. I I think you asked me if I had heard of about young Pharaoh, and I do not know who young Pharaoh is. I'm assuming sounds like I'm assuming it's a modern guy. So is he a 52 practitioner, or is this a legend of a young Pharaoh? Let me know. Give me a little more context about young Pharaoh. Let's see. Crimson Swordsmith. I'm currently working on forging some Iron Age swords at the moment. Do you have any information on Numidian swords? I do not. That sounds really cool though, man. I'm not sure what types of blades the Numidians used. I know they definitely used. They were renowned for their cavalry skills, and they were like skirmishers. So pretty much their style of combat of lightning quick, highly maneuverable horsemanship, coupled with throwing javelins and spears at their opponent is still was still a common way of fighting. Um, even in Ethiopia, you'll see um, that was a common skill set, being able to ride and being able to to throw javelins and hit your target, hit your mark, while again uh, using your horse skills to get you in close, in and out. But I'm not sure of their close quarter weapons at all. Like a good person to ask, and maybe what I'll do is I'll bring on my colleague Adam Myrie, who has this really deep interest in Carthage, and maybe he could answer that question for us. But yeah, I'm not quite sure what type of swords the Numidians use, but it would be really cool to see. If you are interested, um, there are a few examples of medieval Nubian style swords um, that would be really cool to see come to life. Let's see. Do you know what weapons was used when the Ethiopians fought Italy in the First World War? Typically, what's depicted is they used. You see, as far as like close quarter weapons, you see depictions of like straight swords, the seful or saif, the guradi. The guradi just means sword, and then of course the shotels were commonly depicted. Spears as well. Let's see. Okay, I got 1, 2, 5, 6, 8, 4, 8, 8. Says Murillo Oratarius. Who do you have your money on? I do not know. Why don't you tell me who you would have your money on and tell me why? Um, I think I'm a heavy believer in the people, the person being a determinant factor for victory, and there's lots of variables there. But like, I'd be curious to hear like what your thoughts are on that. Oh, okay. So LJ Small says Young Pharaoh is a person on YouTube. He speaks on ancient and modern African peoples. Um, I'll have to look him up. I'm not familiar with his work, but that'll be my homework for me. I will look him up. So Guy S. Were spears and slash spear formations regularly used in African combat? Why would someone choose a Khopesh slash saber over a spear? I think that again, what we find is the sword is like the little brother that gets a lot of credit, whereas the spear is the big brother that does all the work. Um, and we all love swords. There's like a certain mystique that's associated with swords. I think that in many cultures, that the spears were more common on battlefields and more effective in a lot of ways and more versatile. You know what I'm saying? If you think about how many different ways you can use a spear, um, I mean, it really trumps the sword in that way. But then there's this mystique to the sword that makes people, gravitate towards it. Myself included. Um, so I don't think that I mean, so to answer your first part of your question, um, so it's hard to say, like, it's like, yes, some cultures use very organized spear formations, or what we think of as spear formations from what we understand of what's depicted in some of their army and some accounts of how they fought. You hear mentions of spearmen repelling, cavalry and things of that nature. In some places, the way they fought was a little different. They didn't fight necessarily in these like all. They didn't always fight in these formations in these like in these blocks and move, kind of what we envision, like, grand strategy and stuff, where it's like, you got your wings and you got your center and all these parts are kind of moving like chess pieces. In some places they they fought in a different way. And what I think, and I've been kind of falling back on Central Africa, or a really good book that would probably help answer this question is like, if you read Professor John Thornton's book on warfare in the Western Atlantic, and yeah, it's warfare I think it's warfare in the African Atlantic. I believe it's what it is a title, and then pretty much Professor Thornton goes through the different cultures along the Atlantic coast of Africa and talks about how they feel, how they fought, what they preferred, their tools, their strategies, their tactics. And that'd be a great book to actually get a feel for how the terrain affected how they fought, and what they used. So I would recommend that book to kind of help put that into perspective. Um, the second part of your question, yeah, I would choose a spear over the Khopesh or saber any day. Um, I'll take that back. I do like, those cutting swords, but you know, the spear is gonna kick my ass at some point. So I don't know. I don't think anyone will consciously choose that one over the other. But spears were in battles. Um, thank you, Crimson Swordsmith. Good luck on your work. Thank you, Ryan Steele. I love your name. Sound like a superhero. Let me see. Well, I'm rooting for the Retiris over Murillo because I like the themed costume of the fisherman. Okay, good answer. I'll take that. See, Crimson Swordsmith, from my experience, swords are a lot of work to produce, difficult to maintain. It's severely damaged. Spears are often easier to produce and very reliable. Yep, true word right there. Let's see. Guy S makes sense. Thanks for the detailed answer and the book rec. Yeah, it's a really good book. It's on my shelf somewhere around here. And there's actually, you can find a PDF copy of it if you hunt around online, and I highly recommend that book. Well, I've been chatting on for hour and 15 minutes, guys. I appreciate you guys indulging me. Started off kind of slow, but then I got a bunch of questions and I'm a little loopy headed right now. I got to get ready for the workshop tomorrow. So I'm going to go ahead and sign out today. Thank you guys. As always, check out the thumbnail for information about the workshop if you are interested. And I'm just going to go through just to make sure I didn't miss any major questions or anything. So just to do a quick once over here. See, just going through. I think I got mostly everything. All right. Cool, guys. All right. Thank you, Mars, man. Good night. Thank y'all for being here. And I'm trying to figure out how to do this where I can bring in Guru J. And what I want to do is we wanted to be on tonight together to talk about the event. So what I'll do is I'll do a little homework, figure out how to do a interview style live stream, and then you guys can ask him questions and he can talk about yes, digital good times. There is a recording. You can pay for the recording, and if you attend the workshop or if you get the recording, I'll send you a Street Forge Armory training sword in a few weeks. So contact the to the go to the thumbnail for the information and sign up or whatever, follow the information, and then send me your address and we'll get it out to you. All right. Okay, guys, it's late and I'm like my mind is like all over the place. So I'm gonna go ahead and go. Thank y'all again for being here. Check out the thumbnail for information about the workshop. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Hopefully next time I will do a live. I'll have Guru Jay on with me. You guys can ask him questions and we can recap and talk about some stuff. So, all right. You guys take care. Have a good evening. Peace.